right, everyone. Welcome to the My K12 Career Show, where we talk to K-12 educators and people that are working in education all around the U.S. and the world. Today, we are super excited to have Mr. Jerald L. Hoover on the show today as our featured guest. Mr. Hoover works for the Job Corps out of the South Bronx in New York, and he's doing all kinds of things. Like, that's the least of what he does. He does that, and he's working and pouring into the lives of young people, trying to get them ready as they navigate the world, as they come into young adulthood. But he's also an award-winning author. He's a motivational speaker. He's a servant leader. He's an adjunct professor. He's a sports journalist. He's a producer. Like, I could go on and on. But we're going to give him an opportunity to kind of share what's going on in his life and his career. Brother Hoover, welcome to the show. What's going on in your life right now?
Oh man, a little bit of everything, Dr. Williams. And thank you for having me. Like I said before, I'm proud of you with this platform you have because you spreading the gospel of education and you're helping educators educate and you're informing those that aren't informed about what's going on in the education world. So I'm proud of you with this platform.
Thank you.
But with me, everything started with me as a 8-year-old when I first ventured on my first book, which was called I Was a Sad Boy. And I wrote that book because my mom and dad was going through a divorce, and I didn't know what channeling your energy was. But I just wrote, and I wrote partly too because I had a speech impediment. I stutter. I stuttered even now, but I stuttered really bad then. Talk really fast, stuttered, But writing seemed to be like my cocoon.
Okay.
It was my blanket. It was my blanket, and so I wrote a little book called I Was a Sad Boy, and what made me sad. It wasn't so much a divorce. It was because my dad wasn't around me. You know what I mean? My dad wasn't around. So he left the house. He was sort of gone. And unfortunately, he served a few prison terms before he passed away. So my dad wasn't around a lot. And so by me seeing other young men with their fathers, whether we had a bring your dad to school day or if their dad would pick up their son from school, or really would get me when I would watch baseball. I never forget, I watched the Mets. And for some reason, because they didn't have a big crowd at the time. It was really empty in the stands. So you can even hear on TV, you can hear the hot dog guy, hot dog here, hot dog. I mean, you can hear that. Dr. Wales, the place is empty. But it'd always be somebody would hit a foul ball in the bleachers there. And it would always be some male figure going to get the ball and giving it to a young child. I would presume it would be a father and son. And so those kind of things they used to tear into me. And I sort of vowed that, if I have a son, I wouldn't do that. And I would, whether I was with the mother or not, I'm going to be a dad to him. And I ended up doing that. I have one son that's doing very well in Houston, Texas, and very, very proud of him. But I made sure that I stayed in his life because that was just needed. But aside from that, I've always been socially conscious.
Okay.
And so when things bothered me, I wrote about it. Racism was really big when I was growing up. I'm 57 years old, so I'm sort of an old head, if you will.
Yeah, you good,
and so
bro.
I grew up in the Yusuf Hawkins era where he was killed in Far Rockaway some years ago over some stupidness. And, I saw how blacks and whites couldn't get along. So in 9th grade, I wrote a book. I started writing a book about 2 young boys, black and white, that was friends and put them through a bunch of trials and tribulations together. But I got to, Dr. Williams only got to the 5th chapter.
Okay.
And I got discouraged by a teacher.
Wow.
It was a white male teacher. And I don't think it was a racial thing, but it was a white male teacher. I just, I'm pointing that out for a reason. Because instead of him telling me, hey, you got something, may try it, so this, he more or less crossed it out, and basically told me to pick another hobby.
Wow.
And I was like, so I put it down because I figured he's an English teacher. He would know. Then as time went on, my dad's plight got worse, where he was a drug addict, alcoholic, and different things of that nature. So I wrote a speech, and the speech was written by a 17-year-old, which is me, and it was earmarked to other 17, 18-year-olds, my peers, whether I knew them or not, just people that were my age. But what's funny, Dr. Williams, back in those days, in 83, we didn't have fax machines like that. Well, I mean, first of all, you wouldn't send anything on fax. If you're not famous, you're not sending anything by fax, all right?
Right.
But we didn't have social media when we had it. We didn't have platforms. We didn't have vlogs and blogs and all the stuff that we have now.
Yeah.
So my thinking was like, what am I going to do with this speech? And it came to me, it was God-given. Develop a story and have two young men become friends, centered around basketball, love, and let one of the characters say the speech at some point in the book.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's when my friend, my hero, was born. And that was October 17th, 1983.
Wow.
And from that point on, 40 years ago almost,
yeah,
that book has been with me on every level of my life. Now, what was interesting was it took, from the time I started writing it by hand, because I didn't have a typewriter, it's a typewriter, not computer, I had typewriter, didn't have a typewriter, didn't have anything to write with but my hands. And so my first 9 drafts were written by hand, right? On a notebook, pad, loose leaf. It was a mess, but I got through it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm talking about this is because that was my growth. You know, that was something that helped me to grow. And once I got the book actually in written form, in manuscript form, that would look professional enough to where I could send it out to agents, editors, lawyers, publishers, or what have you, that's when the rejections came. And so from 1984 up until 1992, I got rejected about 42 times.
Wow.
Rejection. But Dr. Williams, the rejection weren't like none of them told me to get another hobby, right?
Okay.
They go to the English teacher. They basically said, your book was timely, thought-provoking. I mean, they gave me all types of accolades. And I knew the book was good because I had an older cousin, Ron, he's still alive. So I have an older cousin, Ron, that was really on my back about structure, word usage, telling the story a certain way. So he really instilled a lot of what he saw raw talent to make me a better writer.
Right.
And so I knew the book was good. And I could, you know how it is, Dr. Wynn, when you like when you go on this podcast, something was in your spirit to say, let me do this, because you felt it. You know what I mean? And the times where you may have slacked away from it, either something burned in your spirit or somebody reminded you, hey, you still doing your podcast. Something in the universe came to remind you. That's how God does that.
Yeah.
And so I knew that this was like, this is it. This is a good book. Not knowing that it would be such a long journey to get me from point A to point B. And the reason why I say all that is because even though it took 9 years from the time I'd be writing the book, 1983 to 1992, I grew a lot as a man, as a person, as a business person. And every time I got rejected, I would rewrite the manuscript, do it again. So I must have did about 60 drafts. So I almost know every word for word, every scene word for word. But I think that helped me because remember I told you I was a stutterer. So that took away my confidence to speak.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things that, you know, when you have a disability, it could do something to you mentally, psychologically. And so the great Nikki Giovanni, I met her while I was a freshman at Norfolk State University.
Okay.
Yeah, the senior president, I might have told him that I wrote a book. And he said, hey, well, you know, Nikki Giovanni's coming. I'll let you speak to her for 15 minutes. For him to do that is amazing because I'm a freshman. I mean, I'm a new jack. He didn't have to, and she was coming to speak to the senior class.
Right.
So he didn't have to do anything. But the fact that he said, I'll give you 15 minutes with her, then you got to go to class or you got to leave her alone. So something happened within the first 5 minutes where she took a liking to me, Dr. Williams. When she said, you have class? I said, yes. She said, you're staying with me. She said, I want you to stay with me. I'll write you a note or whatever. I'll get you excused.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know she was a professor at Virginia Tech at the time. So I just thought that, okay, she would just do it. She gave me a note, so I was able to use that. But she had me stay with her all day. And before she left me, before I departed Norfolk State, she says to me, when you get your book published, not if, but when you get your book published, because she knew I was still in manuscript form at the time, that was like in 85. She says, I want you to go to every microphone, every camera, every tape recorder. You know, you hear the devices I'm saying, right? We ain't saying about cell phones or anything like that.
Yeah.
And she said, and I want you to speak and just talk about you, your books, your journey, what you're doing, just talk. And I said, I stutter. And she looked me right in my eyes without even blinking and said, get over it.
Wow.
I was like, you know what I mean? And that was what I had. That's what reaction I had. I was like, oh, that was kind of harsh. But what she did was she heard me. Hold on. She can hear I was stuttering. and how my voice got, fast. I talk fast. She knew all that. Her thinking was, if you want to make money in this business, if you don't get in front of that camera and speak, you won't make any money.
Right.
So by her telling me that, Dr. Williams, it planted a seed. And so I had to learn, okay, talk fast, you stutter. If you're gonna make money, you gotta slow down. And I ain't have any money to get a speech pathologist or speech therapist.
Right.
I had to learn. I had to be self-taught. So I tape recorded myself how to speak slow. I listened to the words that gave me trouble, the letters that gave me trouble, and I learned how to slow down.
Okay.
Slow down. And then I got into a rhythm. And then I noticed when I talk to girls, I didn't stutter, right? Especially if I'm laying down, chill. So I realized, I said, okay, you get either anxious or you get nervous or whatever. But then I found out that I guess me being left brain and right brain. So when I told my mom that the words was spasm in my larynx. So it's almost like two cars going to an intersection and not one bending to let the one or slowing down to let the other one pass.
Okay.
Everybody, same intersection, same time, no one gives, and bam, you have this collision.
Okay.
And so that's what was happening with my thought process, trying to speak too fast, and it was spasming in my larynx. So once I learned how to let one thought go, let the other thought go, let the other thought go, let the other thought go, I was able to manage that.
Okay.
And I was able to become a speaker. So that born me being a public speaker.
Okay.
Now, what helped me, because I'm an extrovert. I'm not really an introverted person, but as an artist, I can go into my cocoon and I can go into my cave and just be gone for hours on end, days on end, especially if I'm trying to develop something. But generally speaking, I'm a person that's pretty outgoing.
Okay.
So that helped having both of those things. So the teaching, the professional development, the motivational speaking stuff, that gene was already in me. Just that because I stuttered, it was almost like a person that's trying to rehab from a broken leg and you want to run track. All right, you can't run track until you get healed or until you get that leg stronger. So once I learned how to do that, then everything started to open up for me. A friend of mine, my former agent, literary agent, told me about opening for a website that needed a sports writer. And I'm like, well, I know I didn't have sports writing experience as a journalist, but I knew sports. Okay. And I could write. All right, put two and two together. Became an award-winning journalist.
Wow.
And I've been a journalist now for going on 26 years. Matter of fact, I tried to retire. I retired, well, since the pandemic, I hadn't gone to a game or two in a couple of years. I get a phone call from one of my buddies who was the sports editor for the Amsterdam News. Okay. He says, hey, who? I need you. I'm like, oh, what's up? He said, you want to do like 20, 25 games? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll get back in the saddle. So I got back in the saddle, Dr. Williams. So now I'm back in it. And it felt good. I was a little rusty at first because I hadn't done it in a couple of years. But I was like, okay, yeah, this was the fun part. But now it's a little different now because we can't go in the locker rooms like we used to, but because of the COVID situation. But you still have access to most everything else. But to be able to see a live game and report on it and ask questions to the athletes or the coach, that's kind of cool stuff. You know what I mean? It's the things that you kind of dream about. And I got a chance to meet a lot of famous people, a lot of famous athletes, announcers, you name it. And me being in New York, I have access to everything. So aside from, like you mentioned, the Job Corps and everything else, what I'm doing in my life is everything. You know what I mean? And the crux of the matter is that at the end of the day, even though I'm doing stuff for my own livelihood, pocket, if you will, my own family, love of helping young people is prominent in my life. It is very big in my life. This is why I write the books that I write. This is why I've come up with the curriculum that I have. And because my thing is, I don't just want to entertain my readers and my audience. I want to educate them, particularly boys of color, because we're looked upon as the lowest lying fruit when it comes down to the education. And I do understand because of technology, all these gaming devices and everything else, reading isn't a priority for a lot of people. That's both black and white, but black and brown boys suffer worse. Right. Because we don't always have uncles or cousins that have their own businesses and different things of that nature. Matter of fact, even our Hispanic brethren, if you ever came to the Bronx, I would take you on the tour. Well, actually, I don't have to take a look. After walking down the street, there's so many Hispanic businesses in the Bronx, from supermarkets to bodegas, which are stores. Matter of fact, you even have Hispanic pizza parlors. Even though they make pizza the Italian way, they own a pizza shop. And the restaurants are plenty, whether you can just go in and grab something as a takeout or you can sit and dine. And there's not a lot of commerce like that for Black and brown, right? And I don't see that as a knock. I see that as they took advantage of opportunity.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, like, we don't have that. So if we can't read, write, and process information a certain way, then we're going to be X'd out of society on a whole lot of levels. And because my thought process is, in a lot of ways, especially in our bigger cities, we don't necessarily have communities. We have neighborhoods. And what I mean by that is we have places where we live, but we're not making money in those areas,
right?
Which I would call that a community. And again, my thinking is, you can't read, you can't write, you can't process things, and can't develop ideas where you can execute your thoughts or what have you. You just keep doing things that's destructive to yourself, neighborhood, family. You're gonna make us extinct, and we don't need that. And we need America's for everyone, right? So my goal is to get everyone to read my books, of course, but to really get young boys of color to get to a point to where they start reading from the cradle to basically to the grave, or older grave.
100%. No. How many books have you written?
I'm on my 5th book. So My Friend, My Hero was the first book, and that's the baby. You know what I mean? That book turned 30 years old last November, which was awesome. It was an awesome experience, man. My mom had gotten a plaque in 1992, December 13th, 1992, from a former boss when she worked at IBM, and because I was in the newspaper. And the caption, brother, said, "Persistence pays off."
Wow.
And this was in 1992. And the fact that the book turned 30 years old without a hitch, still just going. And I'm like, wow, I'm doing this all these years. So we had to relaunch, a new cover, new this and everything else, and so forth and so on. So we had My Friend, My Hero, then we have the sequel, He Was My Hero 2. And then we have a prequel, A Hopeful Hero. And then the book that's going to end the series, which I think is going to be called Hoop Hero. Then a friend of mine, well, actually 2 friends of mine, said, "You ought to write books for kids." And at first I was like, nah, I might be the kids writer. And it was like, well, that will help you what you're doing now. I mean, right. The thought came to me, Brother Joe. I was like, wait a minute. My characters are 18, 19 years old in My Friend, My Hero. They had to be born. Okay, so we'll do a hard prequel, and I'll go with A Basketball Hero Is Born. And now I'm doing children's books. And then the second book is A Hero's Pride and Joy. And if you notice, every title has the word hero in it. Yeah. So it's called the Hero Book Series.
Okay. And
so the goal is to write several children's books. And I'm probably I'm in with the 4 top books for the teenagers and so forth. So I probably will, but I've expanded. So where I had curriculum for each book, and the curriculum for the kids book, oh my gosh, I had a professional, help me with it. What this lady did, her name was Rachel Kent. I'm gonna give her a shout out. What she did is off the charts. I mean, she took my first book, she took the baby book, A Basketball Hero Was Born, and she put a curriculum to that. Dr. Williams, that's second to none. And I'm saying this, I'm biased, but I'm like, wow, if I was a kid, I would love this. If I was a teacher, I would love this. But I have a curriculum for each book, and they're separate curriculum. Because my thinking is, like I said, I want our young men to get educated. Now, young women and women too. So we're not talking about this. It's not just a book for boys, but I want us to be educated, know what words mean, know how to use the word, know how to write properly. Because everything is doing this, our kids can't write. You give a kid a blank piece of paper and say, write me a note, it's going to be that way, or, you know what I mean? It's not going to, because they're not used to writing. And so I'm thinking, like, you got to give yourself a chance to know how to sign your name. That's the move that, a lot of young men can't sign their name, nor can they read a clock. And so there are a lot of basic things that our young men and women need. And so I'm able to do certain things in Job Corps, because my position is CTR, which is a Career Transitional Readiness Coordinator. So I'm able to do certain things there by talking about what it is to work on a job, what's the difference between being an hourly employee and a salary employee,
Sure.
what's the difference in working different shifts where you get night differentials. I mean, there's certain things that our young men and women do not know because they haven't been taught that.
Yeah.
Some of the basic stuff that we take for granted. And so it's a wonderful journey that, like I said, everything that I'm doing is blossoming into some sort of education situation.
That's awesome. Has Job Corps adopted your book series for the students that go there?
You know, it's funny. I can do it if I do it for free.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because I'm with them. So my goal is to, when I leave, leave in a good place, then go to the Department of Labor, the big people, and say, look, this is my curriculum. This is my book. Let's use it. And so I have a plan in place for that. And because I think it would, and I've beta tested this, if you would, where I've given my books to students, high functioning students and some low functioning students. And both types love the book. And I'm like, okay, this book belongs here. This speaks to this population. And so when it's all said and done, I can tell you this part, we're working on a movie version of My Friend, My Hero.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if it works out this time next year,
be on the big screen.
Oh man, yeah, buddy, we're gonna be getting ready for that big screen. So we're looking to shoot sometime in June, July. I have some stars already attached to it, but I don't want to say their names just yet. But you know them. you, Dr. Williams, if you saw any movie in your life, you've seen some of these people.
Wow,
and,
that's awesome.
It's a basketball book, so we want to use some NBA players as well. So
that's really good. That's very good. Wow. So you have what do you attribute it's clear that you have an awesome work ethic and you just have so many things that are going on in your life right now. What do you attribute that to? Do you attribute that to your mom? Like, what gives you this work ethic? I know you shared with me earlier that you're from Jamaica originally.
Well, no, I'm not from Jamaica. I say I'm Jamaican because of how many jobs I have. So I tease people. I say I'm not Jamaican, but I'm Jamaican. You know
okay.
I like I'm Jamaican. Yeah, because that was a play on Living Color. I skipped about 9 jobs and a bunch of Jamaican character. My mom, she had me 19 years old. Then she had my younger sister, who's sadly deceased, left us last July. But she had the 2 of us. And she raised us, by herself in the projects. Well, she had help from her grandparents, but she had to be the mother and the father in a lot of ways. And I saw my mom go to work sick. She didn't take days off like that. She even had to work 2 jobs at one time. And she was tough. She was a protector. If I had a bully that bothered me, she went out and went to work. You know what I mean? Like she didn't beat the kid up, but I mean, like, if she had to talk to the mother or father, she did it in a nice way. And she's not a big woman. She's maybe 5'1", maybe 130 or something like that. She was a smaller woman, but she was feisty as I don't know what. Wow. So I think I got my work ethic from her. And I think my granddad drove a truck. I took the trailer. And, he wasn't home. He wasn't home a lot. But when he was home, he made an impact. And I think I got a lot of my work ethic from those 2, my granddad and my mom.
That's awesome. So I know there's a lot of people out here that are watching us right now, and I'm sure they're inspired by the fact that you not only work a full-time job, but you also are involved in all these other projects that you have. And it's so obvious that you're very creative with your thought process. And you're also 57 years of age, right? So what would you say to someone that maybe they're in their 40s, 50s, and they have a dream? What would you tell them about going for their dreams?
I'll say this, and I'm being honest with you, I say this. If you are a fan of the Bible, read the Bible, or even heard of a verse in the Bible, particularly the character Moses. Moses didn't go on his journey until he was 80 years old.
Wow.
He had certain things that happened in his life. He grew up an Egyptian, okay? Then he was in the wilderness, he was on the run. Then he came back, and God said, you tell Pharaoh, let my people go. He was 80.
Wow.
Dr. Williams, he was 80, bro.
Yeah.
He died. He had 3 phases of his life. He died 120 years old, and he walked to his own funeral. He didn't die from sickness, illness, or nothing like that. He didn't die from old age. He just died. God said, okay, come with me. Go to Mount Hoover, and you'll pass away there, and I'll grab your body, and we'll live happily ever after together. Okay?
Wow.
But he was 80. And so my point is, to answer your question, it doesn't matter how old you are. Start.
Yes.
Don't go to the grave with that. Don't go to the grave with that, because you're robbing yourself and you're robbing everybody who needs your gift. And this is some of the things that when I talk to young people, and I try to get them to understand, everybody is uniquely talented in something.
Sure.
And I quantify it with this. You won't be the best at everything you do, but that's fine. Okay, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, those two are known as the GOATs, if you would.
Yeah.
But they had teammates that helped. So even though they were the best players on the team, on that particular team, they still had people that were valuable. They didn't go 1-on-5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, somebody had to rebound, somebody had to do something else on that team well to make the team work. Just like the pinky is the weakest finger on your hand, but you can't tell Mr. Hand or Mr. Thumb that that pinky's not valuable because it's the weakest or what have you, or the one, I won't say weakest, the one with the least strength. I'd rather say it like that. But that hand is necessary. That body needs that pinky. So there's value in anything that you have to contribute. Whether you're the best singer, the best artist, best writer, the best accountant, the best architect, whatever it is, you're part of something that can help life go better for someone else. And so when young people realize that there's value to them, then you move quicker. Because I think Dr. Williams, and I think this happens, and I'm feeling this even with older people, confidence really is your key to everything. Confidence triggers faith, right? So you have knowledge breeds power. No, okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Understanding breeds knowledge. Knowledge breeds power. Power breeds confidence. Confidence triggers faith. Faith is a verb, the action word. Faith triggers mountains.
Love it.
It moves mountains.
Love
right?
it.
Understanding breeds knowledge. Knowledge breeds confidence. Breeds power. Power breeds confidence. Confidence triggers faith. And faith moves mountains. You think about when Jesus spoke to various people, he would say, I may have healed you, right? But your faith made you whole.
Wow.
You think about that.
That's powerful.
Brother Joe, when you think about it, I'm like, wait a minute. Hold. Wait a minute. Wait, okay. You healed me whether I have faith or not. Now, the one with the issue of blood, that was different because that took the virtue out of, but that still was an act of faith because she said to herself, if I just touched that garment,
yep.
I'm good. You know what I mean? He ain't got to talk to me.
Right.
Touch the garment. Boom. But she had confidence. She had an understanding, right? That understanding triggered knowledge to know that, okay, if I go to that man right there and touch that thing, that garment, I'm good. That confidence, and not to the power triggered faith, and the faith moved the mountain. A lot of people don't realize that it's a formula that works, Brother Joe.
Yes.
But how do you get understanding? You have to read. You have to put your face in a book. You have to open up websites that gives you you have to investigate. You can't just sit still and just think, oh, I'm good. No. Put your face in something to read. Let them eyeballs see things. Let your hands touch. There's virtue, Dr. Joe, even in touching a book. Studies shown that just touching the book, your 5 senses work for a reason. Just touching the things like that trigger. Now, opening it is the ultimate. But once you get understanding of something, and when knowledge kicks in, it's a formula, Dr. Joe, that people just don't follow. So when I do my professional development with teachers or young people, whatever, I hop on that.
Yes.
Want to get better at something? Understand it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I live by that, and I'm having fun with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Brother Hoover, I definitely want to thank you for coming on the show to just kind of share what you got going on in your life, your books, your public speaking, like all these different areas that you're just really pouring into the community in New York, but also in the world. So, but before you leave, can you kind of share with our audience some parting words of wisdom? Tell us how we can connect with you. Tell us how we can, purchase your books. And once you do all that, we can say goodbye.
Awesome. Well, my name is Jerald Hoover with a J. You can see on the bottom there. So you can Google that. And you can find me on IG, Twitter. I have the Hero Book Series on Twitter. I have Hoover Books and Sports on Twitter. Facebook. The website is the Hero Book Series. Okay. The is important to put down there. THE, Hero Book Series. And when you get into contact me, you'll see my number, my email. You can find me there. I do travel, so no place is too far. Okay. I've been as far as, matter of fact, Dr. Joe, I taught in China.
Wow.
I went to China, I taught, I lectured in Belize, I lectured in Dominican Republic.
Okay.
The University of Americano. So I've been to some international places, my friend. So
awesome.
I do travel, and I love sharing, and we'll have a good time. If you ever want me to come, hey, just hit me up, and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put all of your contact information in the show notes, and that way people can easily get in contact with you. But again, like I said, I definitely want to thank you for coming on the show, and we definitely wish you all the best.
And confidence, the parting words, confidence is the key to the breakthrough.
Y'all heard that here from Brother Hoover. Confidence is the key to the breakthrough. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank you, my friend.
Awesome.